I was having dinner with my boyfriend Vincent at this amazing Italian restaurant. After having dinner, Vincent suddenly held my hand and said, "Love you, Elaine." I blushed and said, "I love you too, Levi." I froze as I watched his face turn bright red. I realized the mistake I made and I quickly said in a shaking voice, "I mean, Vincent, I love you, Vincent." But Vincent didn't buy it. He held my hand quickly and stared at me with an angry face. "Who's Levi? Are you seeing someone behind my back? Are you cheating on me?" I replied quickly, "No, of course not. Why would I do that?" Then he stood up and left immediately. Tears started running down my face. Who is Levi? Why did I call my boyfriend another name? Also, I don't know anyone named Levi. So what's wrong with me? I apologized to Vincent, but he wouldn't believe me. I went home heartbroken. My life was getting out of control because of these weird dreams I've been having lately. I feel like someone else is living my life instead of me. It started with me having dreams about places and people I've never seen in my life. I know the human imagination is capable of that, but still it seemed weird to dream people I've never met and poor old neighborhoods that I only see in movies. The first time I dreamt of a girl getting kidnapped. The second was me entering a deserted, dark, dusty building. I thought that these dreams were nightmares until the other day, I saw my friend Tina walking towards me, and I screamed at her involuntarily, "Watch out, Tina, he's behind you!" I saw a bad man wanting to hurt her. He looked like he wanted to steal her money. But to my surprise, Tina looked embarrassed. She walked to me slowly and said, "Are you crazy? People are looking at us. No one is behind me. Are you okay?" I realized that it was my imagination, and that those weird dreams are messing with my head during the daytime, not only at night. But I didn't know that I would start forgetting people's names, especially those close to me, like Vincent. Am I going insane? Should I talk to someone about this? I got home to my parents watching TV. Like most old boring couples, TV is their best way to relax. Mom said to me, "Hey, Elaine, is there something wrong? You look upset." I sighed and said, No, it's just..." But before I got the chance to finish that sentence, I heard the speaker on the TV saying, "Telepathy is always the strongest among family members. They can send each other signals. They feel what the other person is feeling. Sometimes they might even have the same thoughts." I shivered. I freaked out and yelled, "Mom, make it louder!" Mom took the remote and pushed the volume button, and the expert started explaining how identical twins could have this strong bond that makes them feel each other's pain. In rare cases, they might see the same dreams. My head was spinning. I felt so confused to hear these things. Could I be sharing my dreams with someone else? If yes, then who could it be? Mom noticed my facial expressions change with every word the expert said. I didn't want to worry her, so I said, "I'm tired. I'll be going to bed early." But I couldn't sleep. Not after what I heard. I kept thinking about it all night. Was someone trying to communicate with me? If yes, then who would it be? I mean, my friends were all well and fine. My cousins and distant relatives are well too. All of them are healthy and they live safely. Then it struck me. Could I have a relative or family member somewhere? I've known that I was adopted since I was 5 years old. But somehow I never asked about my original family, or even if I had one. I was happy with Mom and Dad because they were literally the best. I always thought of myself as an only child. My heart started racing at this thought. I couldn't wait for morning to come. At 8 a.m., I rushed to their bedroom. I opened the door violently and asked, "Mom, Dad, was I the only child when you adopted me, or did I have brothers and sisters?" My parents were still sleepy, but my question woke them up. Dad asked, "Why? What's wrong? Don't you like it here?" I responded, "Oh, no, not at all. I couldn't ask for better parents. It's just, I've been having these dreams." My parents looked worried when I explained everything that's been happening lately. I told them about the dreams and the confusion I've been having. The only plausible explanation would be this. Someone is trying to connect with me, and I repeated what the expert said on TV. Dad asked, "Are you sure you're not just imagining things? Maybe you're just stressed out." I was pissed. I was not making things up. So Mom said, to ease the tension, "We would have to contact the orphanage we picked you from. Only the manager there knows because the documents we have don't mention anything about you having relatives." And that's how our mission started. The next day, Mom and Dad called the manager, who instantly remembered them. They were the first American couple to adopt a girl from my original country. The manager confirmed that I had a twin sister. Her name was Cora. But looking for her and getting her address would take time, and we would have to wait. I was happy to solve the mystery finally, but the waiting part was killing me, especially with the dream I had 2 days later. I dreamt of a girl running in a dark, dangerous alley. She was screaming for help. I woke up sweating and breathing heavily. Was my sister in real danger? Was she asking for my help? I talked to my parents and I insisted on traveling to my home country. I need to find her and save her. I wouldn't be able to live my life normally knowing that she's in danger. My parents tried to talk me out of it, but I wouldn't listen. So they just had to go along. We booked tickets and went there. It was my first time seeing my country. It was so different, and not in a good way. I'm used to living a rich, comfortable life. I was surrounded with nice, clean things all my life, and here, it's not quite the same. We arrived at the orphanage. The manager, who was a nice old lady with white hair, welcomed us. Wow, I didn't know you were all that serious about it. I still haven't gotten enough information about it. I responded nervously. Just give me what you've got. The manager took us to her office and handed us a bunch of pictures and papers. It had addresses and names of the people we could contact. We took them and we went back to the hotel to figure out where to start. The next day, we went to one of the first addresses we had. It led us to an old building outside the city. People there stared at us. I'm sure they've never seen foreigners before, I told Dad as I was clinging more and more to him. Dad asked the landlord there about the family who adopted 𝗪𝗧. He grabbed my hand and pushed me towards the man for him to take a good look at me. If she's my twin, we must look alike then. The landlord stared at me for a couple of minutes and said, "The dad died 2 years ago. The mom and daughter move out. I don't know where they went." We were disappointed to hear this, but it didn't stop us from looking. We went to all the addresses and asked all the people that we were able to contact. But that didn't lead us to where she was. It was like she disappeared or something. 2 weeks later, it was time to give up. We had to go home. My parents needed to get back to their work, and I was exhausted emotionally. I couldn't find her, but I did what I had to do. A night before we left, I asked my parents to let me go out and explore the area by myself. They were tired, so Dad told me, "Keep your phone on and don't get too far." I nodded my head and I went out. I had dinner in one of the local restaurants and went to the main square where people gathered to celebrate. They were having a festival of some kind. Food stands were on the side, kids playing with balloons, music, and fireworks. I stood on the side watching and taking pictures when suddenly I heard a girl shouting, "Help! Help!" I looked around, but no one was there. A few seconds later, I heard the same sound, but this time it was clearer and sounded more terrifying. It was coming from a dark alley behind one of the food stands. I ran to it quickly, and oh my God! It was the same alley that I saw in my dream. Dark, narrow, and creepy. I shouted, "Hello? Is anyone here? Do you need help?" And the voice responded, "Yes, please, I hurt my leg." I used my phone's flashlight and started walking. There was a little girl on the ground. She was crying and she scratched her knee. I tried to lift the girl up. She was shivering. It was not that cold, so I asked, "What's wrong?" And she responded, "She's after me! They are after me!" I asked, "What do you mean?" The girl got up and leaned on my shoulder, but before she got the chance to speak another word, I heard someone saying, "Leave her and go away. It's none of your business." The little girl clinged on to me. She stood behind me, and then I saw a figure coming towards us. It was a girl with a fierce look on her face. She was wearing old, ripped clothes, and when I looked at her, I said with a shaking voice, "Is that you? 𝗪𝗧?" She looked exactly like me, except the hair, of course, and the fact that she looked so strong and could hurt me in a second if she wanted to. 𝗪𝗧 was confused. She asked aggressively, "How do you know my name?" She stood there checking me out like I was some kind of alien. The little girl took advantage of these moments and she ran away while limping on her foot. 𝗪𝗧 yelled at me, "Why did you let her run away, you idiot? I needed her money." Wait, does she rob people? And then it all clicked. The dreams I've been having are not about 𝗪𝗧. She's not the one being attacked. The dreams are about the people 𝗪𝗧 attacks and robs. She dreams about them. 𝗪𝗧 needs my help, but she needs my help to stop her from hurting other people, not the other way around. I stopped her and said, "𝗪𝗧, I'm your twin sister, and whether you know it or not, you asked for my help. I've been seeing the same dreams you're having about the girls you steal from." 𝗪𝗧 looked shocked. She didn't say anything, so I continued explaining to her how we got separated at birth and got adopted by 2 families. I told her about the dreams, the orphanage, the landlord, and everything that got me here. I added, "I know that your dad died. Where do you and your mom live?" But to my shock, 𝗪𝗧 said, "Mom died a few months ago. I live alone, close to here." 𝗪𝗧 and I went to see where she lived. It was a small hut with a straw roof. I got inside and there wasn't much, a bed and old furniture. 𝗪𝗧 said sadly, When you have no one to support you, you have to manage. I don't steal because I enjoy it. I steal to survive. I got back to the hotel the next morning after I spent the night at 𝗕𝗔𝗖𝗓𝗑𝗧. We talked all night and got to know each other. My parents were freaking out. They wanted to report to the police that I was missing. Luckily, I got there on time. After much discussion, my parents decided to adopt 𝗕𝗓. She burst out crying when I told her the news. Right now, 𝗕𝗓's living with us. She's being homeschooled so she can join me for next year. She's doing her best. As for Vincent, he forgave me after he heard my strange story. We went back dating. One afternoon, however, I asked 𝗕𝗓, "By the way, sis, who is Levi?" 𝗕𝗓 blushed and said, "The baker's boy. He used to give me free bread." She obviously had a thing for him. It's all on her face. All on her face. Hi, my name is Kiara, and I've gone through some insane things. When I was younger, my life was like something out of a storybook, and then it became a horror movie. I grew up in a loving home with my mom and dad. For so long, everything seemed great. Both my parents loved me, I got good grades, people at school liked me, and I was even dating a cute boy named James. I mean, honestly, I was kind of living the dream. And then I entered high school. I started drifting away from my mom because she started being secretive and weird. She quit her job and I never found out why. When I asked, she got teary-eyed and walked away from me. Some nights she slept on the couch, and some nights I even caught her up in the attic, moving old boxes around. It was really confusing. By the time I was a sophomore, I could hear her and my dad fighting with each other every night through the walls. It made me feel unsafe and super uncomfortable. One night, my dad left for a business trip. I hate to say it, but I was relieved. My dad was my hero, and when my mom acted weird, he was there in ways she wasn't. But him being gone meant no more fighting, so I was excited. Or should I say, I was excited for about an hour. An hour after he left, I heard the front door fly open, and heavy boots rush into the house. I crawled out of bed and walked downstairs to see the absolute last thing I would have expected. There was a man standing in my living room, helping my mom frantically drag boxes out of the house. I couldn't breathe. I didn't even know what to say. I had never seen the man before in my life, and my mom was crying. When my mom looked up and saw me, she pulled me out of the house after her and tried to force me into the man's car. I started screaming, demanding to know what was going on. My mom said we were leaving. She introduced me to the man, John, and told me that we were going to stay at his house for a little while. John put his hand around my mom's shoulder, and I gasped. Mom cheating on my dad? Is this why she had been so weird this whole time? I tried to get out of the car, but my mom and John blocked me, keeping me trapped in the back seat. I started screaming for help. I didn't want to be a part of my mom's infidelity at all. Then, headlights shone on the house and the car. My dad was home. Apparently, he didn't go on his trip. The look on my mom's face was pure terror. John slammed the car door on me, closing me in, and then my mom and dad fought. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but eventually the cops arrived and dragged my dad away. From that point on, my life was a nightmare. The cops took my dad for being aggressive during the fight, but I honestly felt bad for him. Before I knew it, I was living with my mom at John's house. And I did not like John at all. He didn't try to get close to me. He barely even talked to me, but he was all over my mom constantly. He was basically obsessed with her, and it made me super uncomfortable. My mom explained to me that she was sorry, but this was what was best for us. I told her I just wanted to be with Dad, but she just wouldn't listen to me. Every time I tried to call him, my phone wouldn't go through. I didn't understand where he was or why he wasn't answering me. This went on for a couple of months. I spent most of my time with James, my boyfriend, but even he thought the situation was sketchy. He told me he had weird feelings about John. John had even warned him to be careful around me or bad things would happen. That sent shivers down my spine. I was just trying to keep my sanity in this insane new world. One night, I woke up to music playing in the front yard. I opened the window to see my dad standing in the grass, blasting music out of his phone and telling my mom and I to come out. I tried to run out to see him, but John stopped me in the hallway. He grabbed me and threw me over his shoulder, pulling me, kicking and screaming back into my room. He held the door so I couldn't get out. My dad walked away after John yelled at him. I didn't understand why, and I was so hurt. Every time I tried to talk to my mom or John about it, they would fight with me. I was fed up. Things with John and my mom got worse and worse. It felt like it was all about them, and I was just a burden. When they left for a business trip, I was honestly relieved. For once, John was decent. He gave me the keys to his car and told me to just relax by the pool all week. Of course, I invited James over to keep me company. We had a great time together. One day, I decided to dip in the pool and relax. James didn't swim, but I think he definitely enjoyed the view anyway. But about halfway through swimming, I started to feel horrible. My vision was blurry, and my stomach was throbbing with pain. When I looked at my hands, they didn't even seem like mine. I tried to stay above water, but I started to completely black out. The last thing I saw was James's panicked face. When I woke up, I couldn't believe my eyes. I heard beeping all around me, and doctors that sounded panicked. I touched my face and realized there were tubes in my mouth, and there was cloth over my eyes. What had happened to me? Had I drowned? Had I had a seizure? It was then that I realized how much pain I was truly in. My insides felt like they were on fire. I tried talking or crying, but I couldn't. I had to just lay there until I finally knocked out again. My life was like that for days. I couldn't see. I could only hear as I drifted in and out of consciousness. At times, I could hear James at my side, reading to me or telling me he loved me. Then it would be my mom and John. Honestly, having John nearby made me wish I would just pass out again. On one day, I actually heard my dad try to enter the room. Him and my mom got into a massive fight. She was screaming at him to get away, and he said that with me injured, I needed both of them to work together to help. My dad was right. There's nothing in that moment that I wanted more than my dad. It took about 2 weeks, but finally, I was starting to feel stable. The doctors unwrapped my eyes and kept a close look on me. My vision was garbage. I could still see, but it was like I was looking at the world through dirty glasses. The doctor sat at my bedside and told me the truth. I had been severely poisoned by someone who put a chemical agent in my pool. The coma I was in and the seizures I had meant I was going to have to learn how to walk all over again. My skin had burns all over it, and it was going to take me years to look normal again. I started to cry. I felt like I was a monster. Then the doctor asked me who would try to poison me. Was there anyone out to get me? Anyone who had influenced me to get into the pool? Immediately, my mind went to John. He told me to relax by the pool. He made sure I did it while they were out of town. And this whole time, he had wanted my mom, not me. I was convinced it was him. When I confronted them with that, my mom told me I was insane. John had tears in his eyes. He swore he had nothing to do with it, but I saw through him. He hadn't wanted me in his family at all. He had just wanted my mom. So much so that he took her away from my dad. So much so that he was willing to poison me. I was so mad. I told the hospital that they weren't allowed to see me anymore. I told them the only person I would see was my dad. Unfortunately, he didn't visit. I tried calling him, but my number still wouldn't go through. For weeks, it was just James and I. I had to go through painful surgeries. I had tubes in almost every part of my body, and I couldn't even walk myself to the bathroom. The doctors even had to shave my head for one of my surgeries. It was horribly embarrassing. And once I was nearing the end, James stopped showing up. I went to my physical therapy appointments alone, with tears in my eyes. When I texted James, I got no response. When I looked at his social media, I realized I was blocked. Just like that, I was completely and totally alone in the world. Or so I thought. I really lucked out with my physical therapist because he was a hottie. A smoking hot babe of a man. His name was Miles, and when he saw me crying, he wiped my tears. It wasn't long before we were hanging out after physical therapy. My hospital stay was coming to its end, and I realized I had nowhere to go. I was freshly 18, my mom had cheated and run off with a guy who tried to poison me, and my dad was absolutely nowhere to be found. I'm not proud of this, but for a few days after my release, I slept in the park on a bench. I went around different fast food places desperately trying to find work. I eventually got 2 jobs at 2 different fast food spots so I could make ends meet and afford an apartment, and thank God I did. Some of the things I saw while I was living in the park were not okay. The whole time I was in the park, my mom was desperately looking for me. She kept calling me, but I knew she wouldn't leave John, so there was no point in even bothering with her. Once things calmed down, I tried to talk to the cops about getting John arrested, but they kept telling me there was nothing they could do. They didn't even think it was John, which was totally insane to me. I was heartbroken, but as time went on, Miles was there to help me. He saw me at my worst, and he was there for me through all of it. He moved into my apartment, and for a while, my life was stable. I would get random, creepy calls from my mom and John every once in a while, but the horror of him trying to poison me started to fade into the background. Then I got some incredible news. I was pregnant. After all I went through, I was going to have a baby with a man who loved me, and everything seemed right in the world. Except I still felt like I was missing something. I knew I didn't want my mom involved with the baby, but I definitely wanted my dad involved. When I was about 7 months pregnant, I went on a mission to find him. I visited all the old places he used to go. I called all of his old friends. I even went to my old house and asked the owners if they knew where he was, but there was nothing. I started calling all the hospitals trying to reach him, and that's when I really started to worry. Had my dad been hurt? Was he homeless now? Finally, I called the last hospital on the list, and they told me that he had been in their custody for over a year. But it wasn't a normal hospital. It was a psychiatric hospital. Had my dad been so torn up about my mom cheating, he had lost his mind? I drove over to the hospital as fast as I could. When I saw my dad, my heart broke. He was skinny and scared looking. When he saw me, his eyes lit up and he hugged me. We talked about the good old days, and he rubbed my belly, telling me how proud he was that I was going to be a mom. I told him I wanted him to be a part of my life and asked how he ended up here. He told me my mom had had him committed after she cheated on him and the doctors wouldn't let him go. I couldn't believe it. I promised him I would sign him out. He had raised me for almost my whole life. Now it was my turn to repay the favor. I told him he could come live with me. When I signed him out, the doctors tried to tell me not to, but I didn't listen. I know my dad, and I knew my mom was the real crazy one. My dad slept on the couch of our house, and he helped around a lot. He cleaned the dishes and cooked, and all around he seemed kind of normal. But whenever I mentioned mom, he would get really upset. He took my car every night to drive to work at his job as a janitor at a local school, and having him around was a dream. Him being gone at night meant Miles and I had our own private time. But soon, Miles was eager to have him out of the house. He told me my dad creeped him out, and I didn't quite understand it. Miles told me my dad had said some weird things about family to him, but I kind of brushed it off until I couldn't anymore. One morning, I got in my car and it smelled disgusting. The back seat had empty containers of what looked like bleach. My heart was pounding, and I knew something was wrong. When I tried to pull out of the yard, a cop car pulled out in front of me. They put me in handcuffs and put me in the back of their car for questioning. I was so confused. Being 8 months pregnant at this point, I was terrified something would happen to my baby. When the cops sat me down, they were actually nice to me. They explained that there had been a cluster of poisonings in family pools around town in the past month. Poisonings just like the one that had happened to me. They hadn't happened in years, and suddenly, with my dad's release, they were happening again. I didn't want to believe it. My dad wasn't a murderer. He didn't poison people. Why would he ever want to hurt me? He could never do something so horrible. But about an hour later, the cops pulled my dad in, and they were carrying evidence behind them. My dad had poisoned the pool of a house right by the station, and they caught him red-handed. When they brought him in for questioning, John and my mom showed up. I was so terrified and confused that I hugged my mom. She cried and explained the truth to me. She hadn't cheated on my dad. My dad had been threatening to hurt her and me for years. When she left in the middle of the night with John, it was because it was her only chance to escape. I had been too young to realize how abusive he was to her. The cops finally got the truth out of my dad. He had poisoned the pool and I in an attempt to bring our family back together. He thought the tragedy would make us a family again, when in reality it tore us apart even more. When he was released, he started doing it to families' pools, hoping it would make families more united and closer together. The logic made me sick. For the first time ever, I saw my dad for what he was, a sick, sick man. He was sentenced to jail for a long time, and I even testified against him. My mom and John are both in my life. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and although life has been weird, I'm thankful to have my weird little family.